Should we smoke before we start?
Probably.
Yay, one last round.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to a special episode of Warp, the completely unnecessary Star Trek podcast, where we do unasked for audio commentaries of Star Trek episodes. My name is Shawn.
My name is Matt.
And I'm Minwin.
And that's it, folks. This is a bonus episode.
I'm so excited we're doing this.
So we decided, or at least I think, sort of Matt's idea. I'll give Matt the credit to do this.
You have to properly credit.
Oh, of course. It was his idea. I agree. I think it's a good idea. We decided since Picard has just come out,
Star Trek Picard is out.
we would do little bonus episodes of Picard. Now, not in our normal format, where we watch the episode and just sort of talk shit about it.
No.
We're going to do little episodes where we sort of admire and respect the process of Picard.
Sure.
And we're going to explain to Min, who hasn't seen
I
it.
haven't seen it. I don't have CBS All Access. I have no access.
Yeah.
You have CBS no access.
Yes, none.
They won't even give it to you if you ask. Like, they won't take your money.
I'm sure they would. My money.
The way this country is going, man, you might be on the way out sooner rather than later.
Yikes! I have a lot of useful skills, and I'm vegetarian, so I don't know if that would count against
That's
me.
a negative,
Probably.
It's
man.
bad in this guy's
no.
eyes, dude.
Yeah.
So we're recording in Warped Studio
B.
North this
Yes.
week. We're in a different location. We have a different
Luxurious.
setup. It's special in so many ways.
It's like the Wild West here, where we're just flying by the seat of our pants right now.
And it's funny that you gave me credit for the idea of doing episodes about Star Trek Picard, considering every single Star Trek podcast, of which there are thousands,
Is doing
they're
it.
all doing the
Sure.
exact same thing.
Yeah,
They're all doing Picard recap
But
episodes.
you came up with the idea that we should do it.
That's true.
So-
I did add that particular wrinkle.
And there is a special sort of sauce in the warped blend here.
Yes.
Okay.
That sounded gross.
I don't know what he meant by that.
I'm gonna
but
let it
We're going
slide.
to move on.
It was like a cooking thing. No?
Sure.
Okay, we'll move on.
So anyways.
Episode 1 of Star Trek Picard,
Remembrance.
Remembrance. And Min didn't watch it.
I didn't.
Well, let's just go through it. So,
Yeah, it's so weird because we're not doing our own.
yeah.
We're not
So,
doing our usual
here we go.
format.
Yeah, and
I'm
we're not
all-
watching
I'm
it.
all kerfuffled.
First
what are
off,
we doing on this thing?
What were the cool
I
moments?
thought that the way they opened the show was brilliant.
Me too.
So I don't
Set
know.
the scene.
Well, okay. Do you know
I saw the
how the
trailer.
end of the last episode of Next Generation?
No, I
What's
didn't
the last
watch.
thing that happens?
No.
So the last thing that happens is after years and years and years of Picard being invited to sort of the officer poker game, and he always declined because he always felt like as captain he couldn't show himself in that light. The very last scene of Star Trek Next Generation is him going and playing poker with the crew.
It's sort of his retirement to the next chapter.
Yeah, he's
Of
sort
his
of
life.
realizing that he doesn't have to be the sort of stern head that he always was.
Yeah. So then he's no longer on the Enterprise. He's no
Well,
longer
he's
captain of the Enterprise.
long retired. But
Yes.
what was cool is the first scene is him playing poker with Data.
Oh.
That's how
So
they
the first
open
thing
the
we
show.
see, Min, is our old pal, the Enterprise D,
Uh-huh.
Picard's ship,
Yes.
which we have not seen on TV since the end of Next Generation.
That's the one with it's sort of wavy, it's curvy.
They're all sort of wavy and curvy, man.
Well,
You know
It's
what the
similar to
Enterprise
the-
looks like. So we see the ship, and it's lovely to see it again in
Yes,
all of its
it looked
glory
beautiful.
on
It was
television.
great. The effects are so much better now.
Yeah.
So like it
Yeah,
just
it looked
looks
great.
so much. It looked way better than it would have ever looked in an episode of Next Generation.
Did it have any Abrams flares, lens flares?
No.
This
Oh,
has
thank
nothing to
God.
do, although it does have. He has Kurtzman has Abrams' background.
Yeah, sure.
So
We hear Blue Skies, the song
Yes.
Blue Skies, which
But-
we heard in Star Trek Nemesis. You will hear in someday in Star Trek Nemesis, man.
Yeah.
Many years from now.
Yeah. Many years.
And then we see Picard and Data, our old pals, Picard and Data, playing poker.
he's still a captain.
They're wearing their old uniforms.
Wearing uniforms.
They've CGI'd Brent Spiner's face to make him look like he looked back in the day, because androids aren't supposed to get old, right, Data? Right, man?
Yeah.
Sorry, I just almost called you Data. That was a real Freudian slip.
I've got that android flavor about me.
You do sometimes have a little android flavor about you.
Thank you, Captain.
They're playing poker. They have a sort of enigmatic conversation
about bluffing and tells and stuff. And
So is this a flashback, right?
it's a dream.
It's a dream sequence.
It's a dream.
Because right after that, the entire planet of Mars explodes out
you
the
see
window.
that the ship is orbiting the planet Mars, and Picard's like, "That's funny. What are we doing at Mars?" And then the planet explodes, and the Enterprise explodes, and it's a big sort of beat, and that's what goes into. And then
you're
he
like-
wakes up,
He wakes
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
and now it's old man Picard.
Yes. Oh, man,
on
Picard.
his vineyard in France.
With the best guest star, with the best co-star.
He has a dog.
His dog, number one.
Who he's named number one, which is what he used to call Riker back in the day on the
Yeah,
old
sure.
show.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes, I
part,
do.
Vin?
Yes. What sort of dog?
It's not like talking to Aaron. Like, you are familiar with the
Yeah, a little-
basics
yes.
of Star Trek.
Yes,
Next
I am.
It's
Generation.
like a sort
collie.
of pit bull.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
So
it's a
the
cool looking
backstory
dog.
is-
Yeah.
The backstory on that is that Patrick Stewart in real life is an advocate for pit bull rescue. Like,
Awesome.
that's a charity that he supports and works with, and he has pit bulls of his own. He's like a big pit bull guy.
Yes.
And so his sort of thing is like he's trying to like rehabilitate the image of pit bulls because everyone thinks
No,
of
they're
pit bulls
awesome.
as being terrifying and
Yeah.
scary because of their reputation back in the day. So anyway, it was Patrick Stewart's request when they said we're going to give we think Picard's going to have a dog. Patrick Stewart was like, that's great, but it has to be a pit bull. Patrick Stewart really threw his weight around behind the scenes on this.
I love it,
because,
though.
I mean, if you're Patrick Stewart and they're making a TV show called Star Trek Picard, they can't do it without
Yeah,
you.
like you can exert an amazing amount
So
of
he was able to
power.
get a lot of things that he wanted. I know that they filmed it here in Los Angeles rather than going to Vancouver, which is where
Discovery
is shooting, because Patrick Stewart lives in Los Angeles and did not want to schlep up to Canada for
Sure.
6 months.
Yeah.
And so he said, if you want me to do the show, we have to do it here in LA. I get to use a pit bull from a dog. He just had he had a writer, I guess. Did we?
But then he's going to be happy when he comes on and he's doing the show, and you want a happy star.
You want a happy star for
Yeah,
sure.
of course. They had to. I mean, like you say, they don't have a show without
Couldn't
him.
do it without him.
So
Have to call it
they
something
had
else.
to back up the truck to get him to
Can
do
you imagine
it.
if they recast Patrick Stewart?
Who do you
Like-
think they
Stewart's
would
like,
go
I don't want to
for?
do it. And they're like, well, I guess we'll get Ian McKellen. I don't know.
Ooh, that's how they got him to do it. They threatened that Ian McKellen would do
Ian
it.
McKellen will do it. Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart are like best
buddies,
friends in real
yes.
life.
Yeah, I saw a picture of them. They had kissed at the premiere. or-
Yeah, Ian McKellen showed up to the Star Trek Picard red carpet, and they were having all kinds of fun taking pictures.
How
together on
cute.
the red carpet. They're adorable together.
Oh, what about Hugh Jackman? Do you think people would go for Hugh Jackman
As Captain Picard?
As Captain Picard.
Boy, that's
not as old man.
untraditional.
Not as old man Picard. That'd be weird.
That is some non-traditional casting. I mean,
but interesting.
interesting. Sure, I'd watch it. Yeah, I'd watch Hugh Jackman
That
playing
would
Patrick
the
Stewart.
Hugh Jackman playing Picard, in Starfleet, like when he's in the Academy,
Yeah.
but 20 years ago.
Yeah.
when Hugh Jackman was still young.
Who would you cast if
As
you were
to
if Patrick
recast
Stewart was not available
Yeah.
and you needed to cast someone as Picard? Who would you cast?
Kelsey Grammer?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
He's
But
got
a lot
he's
more
little
sarcasm.
more- I don't know. He feels a little more blustery than Picard is, or
Sure.
thick.
Yeah, he's definitely got a bigger head.
Yeah. That's not bad. I mean, that's it's about the same level of television.
Same be
you know,
age-wise.
same general
to-
age. He's already been on Star Trek once.
Yeah,
before,
he
anyway.
played a captain on Star Trek.
Oh, did he?
In one of the next, he
We'll
played
get to that in
the-
a few years.
He played the
The one that comes back through the time
but
portal.
he was the Enterprise C, right?
It was
Or Enterprise.
no. That's a different
Oh,
episode. That's the one with
okay.
Tasha comes back.
Gotcha.
He was like the Bozeman was the
Oh,
name of
okay.
his ship. or something.
Anyways,
That sounds like some deep lore. Right
We'll get to it.
there.
It's a great episode.
Oh, really?
It's one of the better ones.
But anyways,
Anyway, we can't think of a good person to cast as Patrick Stewart.
I like
I
his
guess
and
that means
obviously,
he really is.
and obviously
irreplaceable.
CBS couldn't either. And so they backed up the truck, said, "Take whatever you like."
They've already renewed the show
Yes.
for another season. They renewed it before it had come out.
Yeah, of course.
Before the
Second
premiere. They
People are
renewed for
loving
another
it,
season.
of course.
Did you guys see? God, we're really getting off topic of the walkthrough, but that's okay. Did you guys see the clip of him going on The View and talking to Whoopi Goldberg?
Yes. We invited her to play Guinan.
No, I didn't.
Yeah. So
in
Patrick
season
Stewart
2.
went on The View, which is a talk show.
Sure, yeah, I know the view.
Okay. Whoopi Goldberg is one of the people that's on it.
Yes.
I don't know. Sometimes
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know.
that's true, that's
I don't know
true.
what you know. So sometimes I feel like I have to explain things.
That's very nervously playing with things on
I don't
the
know. I'm
table
just
over
fidgety
here.
right now. I'm all thrown off my game. I'm in Studio North. I'm having to hold my own microphone. You guys,
Yeah,
we
it's-
didn't even talk about that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's a little warm. It's unseasonably
Not
warm.
nearly
It's a
as
sunny
comfortable of
Los
a
Angeles
studio
day.
as we normally.
It's lovely. I couldn't be happier. It's unseasonably warm for February
true.
1st, though. I mean, it's 81 degrees in Los Angeles
Yeah.
right now. It's great. I love it. I mean, spring's right around the corner.
I think the cold is done.
That's great.
A few more days, and then.
Yeah, so I'm having to hold my own microphone, which is throwing me off a little bit.
So you were saying about.
So Patrick Stewart goes on The View to promote Picard, to talk about Picard. And obviously they have a history together because she was on the old show, and he invited her to come back and play Guinan in season 2.
Oh,
of
wow.
Picard.
On the show.
Yeah, on The View, while he was talking to her
Wow.
on television. It was very sweet. It was very emotional. The audience all applauded. They hugged. Like, she was crying a little bit. Like, she's such a huge Star Trek fan. It means so much to her
Yeah.
that I think she was really touched that they asked her to come back. So that was that.
Yeah, that's
It's a
awesome.
sweet story.
And yeah.
So Picard wakes up from his dream. We're now about a minute and a half into the episode.
It's like
man.
our D&D.
This is shaping up.
This
I
is
thought
going to
this
be
was going
the.
to be.
It's going to be the longest warped episode. It's going to be a 2-hour episode.
I thought this was going to be short because I was like, it's just me and Shawn and Min, and it's, there's not that much to talk about
Right,
beyond
right.
because we're not watching it.
Sure.
We're just talking about it. I was like, these episodes are going to be 20, 25 minutes top. Like, we'll just zip right through this. So Picard wakes up from his dream, his prophetic dream that he's had about Data. He's got a dog named Number One. We covered that already. He's retired from Starfleet and is living on his family vineyard in France. I don't know if you remember this, but we've seen the vineyard before back on the old show.
His brother was
At the
running
time,
it.
his brother had. The family dynamic was that Picard's brother had stayed behind to run the family business. The family business was making wine, and Picard was the dreamer who had sort of like gone off to space because he was an explorer.
Wanted to travel.
So there's an episode of the show, the old show, where Picard goes back and sees his brother.
I never
so we've
knew he had a
seen the
brother.
vineyard before, but since then, the brother has died, and Picard is now running the vineyard. So he wakes up, he goes down to breakfast. There are 2 Romulans there, a man and a woman.
Laris is the woman and Zabian is the male.
Laris and Zabian.
That sounds like Aaron and Philippe to me.
So
They are a little Aaron and Felipe, actually, now that you mention it. He's the nice one. She's a little more...
I hope they don't listen to this episode.
and they won't listen to this.
They won't. I knew I was completely safe.
We'll see.
Plus, I love Aaron. I'm totally joking.
Yes.
So he's got this Romulan couple who work for him at the winery, and are sort of his like caretakers.
Yeah.
Like they make breakfast and that kind of stuff. So he talks to them about his dream, right?
Yes.
And then I forget the order that things happen.
Well, then, because right somewhere around the same time, they flash to a new character.
Oh, okay. Is this when we see her? We meet her for the first time.
And her boyfriend, and they're sort of talking about getting into like a program of college, so something along those lines.
They're in Boston.
Yeah.
And this girl and her boyfriend are sitting on the couch.
Human.
She's human and he's some weird alien.
Okay.
And they are talking about the fact that she has been accepted to a fellowship at the Daystrom Institute, which is a little callback to back in the day. Richard Daystrom was the guy behind Nomad.
Oh, okay.
like-
That's where it comes from.
Daystrom is one of those names that pops up a lot
Gotcha.
in the sort of like Easter eggy parts of
What's
Star Trek.
Daystrom? What's Nomad?
It was an old Kirk episode with a robot. Daystrom was a guy who was big into robots, and now he has an institute called the Daystrom Institute. It's all about studying robots. She's been accepted to go there. They're very happy. This girl and her boyfriend. They're celebrating the fact that she's gotten into this very prestigious institute. And then a bunch of bad guys beam into her apartment. They're all dressed in black, and the one guy throws a knife and immediately kills the boyfriend. Just takes him out. One fell swoop.
Critical hit.
They grab the girl. They put a bag over her head.
And they say
some weird thing about, well, she hasn't been activated
don't
yet.
let her activate.
And then she fucking activates all over their asses.
Just tears them
So
apart.
in an instant, she becomes this killing machine. She just beats the shit out of them and murders them all. And then she kind of like snaps
Comes
back
back
to herself, and she's sort of looking around at all the carnage, like, what the fuck did I just do? Oh, and also she has a little vision where she sees Picard's face.
So she's a little Serenity right there.
It was a very Serenity, up to the even including the sort of like back over the shoulder kick that girls always do in badass fight scenes.
I'd love to see a guy do that one.
You
day.
never see a guy do it. It's always girls. It's always Buffy. And
They should
people like
switch up the sort of moves that the guys.
I don't know
girls
why
do.
that's an explicitly female
I know, right?
maneuver, but I've never seen a guy do it.
Have you seen
Maybe
that?
they're not. Maybe guys
Just
aren't
aren't
flexible
enough to be able to do that.
This is the movies. Come on, they can. It's movie magic. Have you seen that photo of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle?
Yeah.
Where they swap the heads, so like he's on her body.
No.
No.
Why did they do that? Just because it's funny?
Yeah, it's funny, and it just to me it just sort of like outlined gender differences so immediately. It was so shocking to see his head on her body because she's got a very feminine body and she's wearing a gown, and then he's in like a black suit and her head is on his body. So it was just very jarring. I loved it. You should check it out. I'll forward it to you guys.
Okay. I'm looking forward to that. So she's killed these guys. She's had this little vision of Picard, and now she's freaking out because she doesn't even know, like, how the fuck did I even do that, right? And then what happened?
Well, then flash back to the vineyard.
Yeah.
And Picard is now going to go on the news.
Oh, this
He's
is
being
the interview,
interviewed. The interviewer played by Marin Dungy.
Yeah, I was like, it's Marin Dungy.
She's great.
She's great.
Is that where's she from?
Lots of things. She was, I think, an Alias.
She was on an Alias.
Was
for a
her
while.
probably her?
Best
She was
friend.
her.
Gotcha.
She's one of those people who's been on every TV
She's done
show.
tons of stuff. She's great. She's awesome.
She's a really good actress.
She's great on Twitter.
She's
too.
playing she's great on Twitter.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't follow her on Twitter. I
Yeah.
should.
You'll have to.
She's playing a journalist. Picard hasn't given an interview in a long time. We don't know why. He's talking to his Romulan female friend, and she's telling him, don't be nervous. And he's like, I'm not going to be nervous. I'm fine. I'm fucking Jean-Luc Picard. And she's like, I already talked to them, and they promised they're not going to ask why you dropped out of Starfleet. We told them that question is off limits. So he's like, okay, good, because he didn't want to have to talk about that. They're celebrating. They're tying. It's sort of 9/11-y. It's like the reason he's giving this interview is there was 14 years in the past. There was a disaster on Mars, right? Is that what they are,
No,
or is it the Romulan?
It's the supernova, the Romulan supernova.
That's what it's the anniversary
yes.
of. Okay.
So in the movie Nemesis is all about the Romulans having to be taken off of their planet because
I thought it was in the first Star Trek movie that we learned that Romulus got blown up. The first JJ version.
no, in Nemesis, that's the whole thing. they go there because the star is going to supernova.
You might have to corrections corner this.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
They're interviewing him.
Anyway, there was a big disaster on Romulus back in the day.
Yes.
And the Romulan star went supernova, and the Romulans asked the Federation for help. And a lot of people didn't want to do it because the Romulans are notorious bad guys, right? That the Federation's had problems with for a million years. So a lot of people were like, fuck those guys. We don't like them anyway. But Picard was like a big advocate for, we have to go help them. This is a humanitarian emergency. You know, it's the right thing to do.
Even though
the ideals of the Federation and blah, blah, blah.
The Romulans were the number one enemy during Next Generation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he fought against Romulans the entire.
There
So
was
for
a lot
him
of
to be the
Romulans.
one that's like, no, it doesn't matter
That was
who
a
they
big step.
are.
We have to go help them.
This
It's
is what we're
classic
here-
Picard.
Yeah.
Classic moral, ethical Patrick Stewart Picard, as we have always known and loved him. And Picard managed to convince them, yes, the rest of the Federation, yeah, we're going to go do it. But before they could, on Mars, where they build the spaceships, there's a big, huge base on Mars called Utopia Planitia. And that's where they build starships, right? It's where the Enterprise was built, blah, blah, blah. They're building all of these ships to go to Romulus because they don't have enough ships. So they're building this like rescue fleet. It's going to go to Romulus and save the Romulans. Before they can, all of the robots on Mars, all of the androids went insane and killed all of the people and blew up the base on Mars. Like 50,000 people died, she says. This is all, we are told all of this
In the interview.
while she's interviewing Picard. She's asking him questions about all of the stuff I just described to you.
And he left.
And he's saying, oh, this is a
shortly-
very sad day and blah, blah, blah. And this is a time to reflect and talk about the Romulans. And you sort of get the idea that the two Romulans, they don't say this explicitly, but you sort of get the idea that the two Romulans that are living with him now are sort of like Romulan refugees that he has taken in, right?
Yeah.
And now they work for him. So anyway, they're showing you the footage and they're telling you the story and they're saying, so 14 years ago there was this huge thing and then the robots went crazy on Mars and that's why the Federation has banned all artificial life. No robots, no androids. The Federation's banned them completely.
dismantled
No Data.
all of them. Data has been dismantled. They
Data was already
or
dead.
He was already dead.
Data dies at the end of Star Trek Nemesis, man, the film.
I don't think I watched that too closely.
Yeah, you may not have
Yeah.
ever seen it. So he's talking about this tragedy, and he's talking about how the Romulans died, and the robots went crazy, and now the Federation has banned robots. And Picard, doesn't agree with this because obviously Data was like one of his best fucking friends,
Yeah.
and he believes in robot rights. There are multiple episodes of Next Generation all about the issue of like what rights do androids have, and Picard's always firmly been on the pro rights side.
Sure.
So then the girl brings up the 40-year-old woman who's interviewing Picard, starts asking him about why he dropped out of Starfleet, which is the thing they told him they were not going to ask him about. She's sort of a gotcha journalist,
sort
right?
of a
sort of a setup.
Pushing.
set up like it was going to be a cream puff, and then she just came at him
she
like
came at him
almost
with, like, really hard
immediately.
questions,
Like she
like-
just started attacking him.
Which is not what it was supposed to be. So Picard's a little like pissed off. So anyway, she says, "Why'd you drop out of Starfleet? Why'd you drop out of Starfleet?" And he's like, "Because it fucking wasn't Starfleet anymore. They abandoned the Romulans and they banned all artificial life forms and the ideals that I believe in. Starfleet doesn't believe in that shit anymore. Oh, and by the way, I'm done talking to you." And then he stands up and sort of stomps off.
Sure.
She gives him a classic Picard. He gives her a classic Picard sort of read. He just fucking like
Dresses her
puts
down,
her in her place and then walks
walks,
away.
and then the girl shows up at the winery.
Is that the next thing that happens?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Because those ships got blown up, then the Romulans didn't get saved.
The Romulans did not get saved
Okay.
because they canceled the mission because they were dealing with the aftermath of this disaster on Mars.
So they obviously some Romulans had already been saved, but not.
yeah,
all, not as-
the Federation just was not involved in the rescue effort.
Yeah. So comes to the vineyard, says, I saw you. Do you know me? And he's like, no, I don't know who you are. To the Dodge is her name, the girl. But it brings her in because she's obviously been beat up because she just had fled from kicking the shit out of 3 people.
Oh, yeah. I remember how this happened. She sees the interview.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
So there's a little scene where his interview with the journalist is being broadcast all over the galaxy, and she sees it in like a TV store that she happens to be walking past, one of those kind of scenes. And she's like, that's the guy from my fucking vision.
I should hunt him down.
What?
I should hunt him down.
Yeah, because it says his name on the bottom.
Right.
And she's like, oh, okay, that's who that is. I'll track his ass down. So she does. And she goes to France. Picard's sitting out on the fucking veranda, drinking some wine, petting his dog.
Yep.
And
then she shows up.
And then she just kind of walks in. Just walk. Like, how did she get there? Like,
yeah.
It's real easy to get around. It's real easy to get around.
It's the future.
That was one of the things that it's later on when they go to Starfleet. They have these cool like archway transporters.
That's in the second episode
where they walk through
and
you
it
sort of
you,
disappear,
boom.
and then by the way you walk
it's
through the other way.
It's public transporters.
That's pretty cool. But anyways, yeah.
So she walks up. She goes, "Hey, I need your help. I had a vision of you. These people showed up and they killed my boyfriend, and then I killed all of them, and I don't know how I did that, and I'm freaking out. And I had a vision of you, and you have to help me. And you know me too, don't you? I bet you know me too." And at first he's kind of like, I don't know what you're talking about. But then he's like, actually, you do look kind of weirdly familiar. And I can't quite remember where I know you from. But he's Picard, so of course he's going to help her. So he takes her in and they clean her up and take care of her. And
everyone
blah, blah, blah.
Goes to sleep. He has another dream.
Yeah.
This one, he sees Data painting. Data's painting a picture. And then he looks at the picture and it's of a woman in sort of a cloak. That same look that the girl who walked in looked in. And then he realizes that he's seen that picture before. He wakes up and he says, I've seen that picture, and he's got it on his wall. The finished version. It wasn't finished in the dream, it was finished. And it's clearly the girl. Looks exactly like the girl, the painting. And then he eventually figures out that the painting's name is Daughter.
Okay, well, you skipped over a little bit there.
No.
Yeah, you did. So
there's other things that happen. But
he looks up at the painting, and it's not the one with her face on it. It's the one where she's turned away from the camera. But then he's like, wait a minute. I know where that painting came from. And then he goes to the fucking Starfleet archives. Right. He goes to Starfleet, like the Starfleet History Museum, where he has his archives are kept there,
Yeah, that's right.
People donate their papers to like universities or whatever.
But only he has access to it.
Right. Picard has donated all of his shit. It's like a storage unit, basically, to the Starfleet archives.
But it's got a bunch of cool shit. It's got Worf's bat lift. And
so he goes in there.
It's got like all this cool.
It's an Easter egg delight.
Yeah, it's
in
just
there.
like
it's Easter Day in there.
Yeah.
It's like
the
the
Bunny
Stanley
Rabbit went
Kubrick
crazy
collection or something, but his stuff.
Yeah. So there's like a hologram that sort of takes him in there, and he says, nobody else has ever allowed him here, right? And the hologram's right. Yes, that's right. Nobody else but you. So he goes in there, and it's like Klingons, Worf's fucking sword, and like his Shakespeare book that he had in his office, and the Captain Picard Day banner is hanging up on the wall.
From the kids.
It's just a treasure trove of nerd, memorabilia.
Props.
In there. So he goes in there, and he finds another painting just like the first one, except this one you can see her face in it. And then he talks to the hologram, and he's like, hologram, and the hologram shows up, and he's like, tell me about these paintings. And he's like, these are paintings that Commander Data painted for you back in the Enterprise, which you would think Picard already would know, but they needed exposition.
He's
so
old
the
man
Picard,
his memory's probably slipping a little bit.
It's to help certain viewers.
And he's like, hey, hologram, these paintings were called something, weren't they? And the hologram's right. Yes, they were called Daughter. Okay.
How's the hologram? Does that actor steal it, or it's just...
They're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the performances across the board are all really
The acting's terrific all the way through. So then he's like, oh, Daughter, okay. So then he goes back. Oh, no. She leaves.
She had left, and she's all freaked out. She's run away. After they all go to sleep at the vineyard, she runs off in the night.
Right.
Because she's
Before he goes to the archives.
That she's going to hurt anybody. She doesn't want anybody else to get hurt because her boyfriend got killed. So she's trying to protect people by staying away. She calls her mother, and her mother says, well, did you when you saw Picard, what did he tell you? And she's like, I didn't tell you I saw Picard. What do you? And he goes, well, of course you did, honey. You definitely said you saw him. No, I didn't. Well, find him because he will help you. Whatever you do, go find Picard. And he goes, okay.
Her mother, who supposedly doesn't know anything about this, is like, go find Picard. He'll take care of you.
Yeah.
So then she's like, what the fuck? Like, my whole life is a lie or whatever.
So after he's found the painting and he's been there, she finds him.
She finds him. She goes to find him.
She goes to Starfleet.
She's also got, in addition to her like super assassin skills, she's also got like super
Sleuthing.
computer skills
Yeah,
because
she
she
can, like,
uses her fucking mobile phone
hacks
and hacks into
finds
the
him.
network and finds out where Picard is
Yeah.
and goes to him.
And then
So Picard's coming out of this building in San Francisco, and she's just fucking there. And Picard's like, how did you find me? And she's like, we don't have time for that.
That's good writing right there.
So he
Love
tells
it.
her about Data. He tells her the story of Data. I had this friend. He was an android back before androids were outlawed. He painted a painting, and it's a painting of you. And I can't explain how that happens, but I kind of think that maybe you're an android.
Yeah, that you are made
You
of
are somehow
data.
you are somehow connected
But
to Data,
she's-
and that's why you can do all this shit that you shouldn't be able to do.
But she's also flesh and blood. So it's
Right.
sort of. So then he goes to the Daystrom Institute.
No, then they have the fight scene.
Oh, right. So then the Men in Black show up
So
and
he's
attack
like,
them
he's
again.
telling her, look, I think you're a robot. I think you're an android like my friend Data. And because of that, I promise that I will protect you because I owe it to Data to protect you. And then the bad guys show up again.
Right.
Bunch of fucking black suit dudes show up. And
They're
they're like,
running around.
run.
Picard, man,
So they
Picard
run up
is
into the building.
up the
This
stairs.
was one of the few times. This whole sequence was one of the few times where I really noticed how old Patrick Stewart is.
yeah.
Because the scenes where he is running,
He looks
and it's him. It's not a stuntman
Sure.
wearing a bald
That's
cap.
commendable.
You can tell that it's him, and he runs like an old man who is
Yes.
just a little bit afraid of falling down. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
Just a little hesitant
Yeah.
about running at full speed ahead. So the girl who's the girl in this show is like 24 or something. Like she's young.
like pulling him
Agile.
up. Come on.
So
come
she's
on.
like fucking hauling ass, and Patrick Stewart's like trying not to like break a hip, but still, you know. There's a moment where she kind of shoves him down like behind a bench to protect him because the bad guys now are shooting at him. They've run up to the roof, right? They've run up to the roof and they're running across the roof, and the bad guys have come behind and are shooting at them.
They have stormtrooper aim though.
Yeah, they're missing a lot.
Sure.
So she pushes him.
She pushes him down the bench, and in that shot, you can see sort of Patrick Stewart, like, just doing it a little bit slower than you would normally expect to see a person in that situation dive behind a bench, just because I'm sure he's just being cautious and just kind of making sure that he
doesn't
hurt
hurt
lands,
himself.
that he lands safely and doesn't
Yeah.
hurt himself. But you can just sort of tell it's in the physical moments.
that he
It's
looks
not so much
old.
in his acting or his face.
Sure.
I mean, he does look old now. He looks older now. I read some people on Twitter saying, like, it's like he hasn't aged a day since Encounter at Farpoint. And I'm like,
no.
look at Encounter at
Yeah,
Farpoint
yeah.
again, my friends. I mean,
He
looks
was
remarkable.
bald and he had the white hair.
He was bald,
but
so he
was
looked
not
older then.
wrinkled.
No.
like his face has gotten much
He's
more
in his
wrinkled.
60s.
He's 79, I think.
Yeah.
Oh my
yeah. I mean,
God.
he's old.
He was in
There's
his
nothing wrong
40s.
with being
He was
old.
in his 40s on the old show.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That was 30 years ago.
I'm surprised Tom Cruise isn't quite there yet.
Well, he's not that old
He's
yet.
not that.
He's not
old.
quite
There's a
that
big
old.
difference between 50
There's a
and
big
70.
difference between late 50s and late,
Late
70s.
70s.
Yeah,
I
especially
mean, that's
these-
20 years.
It's a lot.
Certainly.
So anyway,
They fight.
in those kind of moments, you kind of go, okay, I see that he has aged.
The Vineyard is a good place. for
Picard's supposed to be over 100, like in the timeline of the future.
him. Sure.
But anyway, he looks amazing for his age, but it's clear that he's aged.
Yeah.
So anyway,
She kicks
she throws him behind the bench and is like, "Stay here, old man." And then she fucking kicks some more ass. She kills a bunch of fucking Romulans.
Well, we find out that they're Romulans. This is
Oh,
where
yeah. So he's killing a bunch of the black-suited dudes.
One of the helmets comes off.
And then at the last, she's got one last guy that she's trying to kill, and then he manages to kill her. He has like a acid like thing.
Yeah, he spits acid at her.
He's got like one of those cyanide tooth thingies, but it's got acid in it, and he spits it on her, and she's holding the gun. And it makes the acid eats through the gun, and the gun blows up, kills her,
blows her up
to dead.
She's dead.
She's dead.
Okay.
So now,
but Picard sees that one of those guys is a Romulan, one of those black suited dudes.
He goes to the Admiral of Starfleet. Is that where he goes?
No, that's in the second episode.
In the second episode? Now he goes to Daystrom.
Yeah. He goes back to France. He wakes up in France. He gets knocked unconscious in the explosion. He wakes up. He's back in France. His two Romulan friends are putting cold compresses on his head and shit. And he's like, what happened? And they're like, they found you up there, but there was no sign that anybody else was ever there. So whoever's responsible has cleaned it up, right? There's some sort of cover-up fucking happening.
But they left him.
Well, yeah, they left him, but they took away all the dead bodies, so it looks like he was up there all by himself. Yeah. They're like, nobody else, it didn't look like anybody else was up there. So, but Picard's like, I know what I saw, and I'm not making this shit up.
And they don't have cameras in this utopian society.
At least not on that roof.
Yeah.
Not on that roof. Well, yeah, they do, because they look at the footage of it. In the second episode, they look at the footage of it, and he's the only person in the footage. So the footage has been altered to take everybody else out of it.
Gotcha.
So he goes to see this woman. So he finds out that the girl was about to be accepted into the Daystrom Institute, and that he thinks that she's an android, right? So he's like, I got to go talk to the android experts. But androids have been banned by the Federation. So he goes to the Daystrom Institute, and he meets this woman. She's a robot doctor. She's an android scientist. And they go into her lab, and her lab is like fucking empty because she's like, they don't let us do any work anymore because they banned androids. So all we do is like research now. We're not allowed to build anything anymore. And he goes, and then because he tells her, I think that I've met a flesh and blood android.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that's possible?
And she's like, that's fucking impossible. And he's like, tell me why. So they're going through the lab, and she's sort of explaining to him, blah, blah, blah. They see B4, Data's brother, B4, is there. Because at the end of Nemesis, before Data dies, he transfers all of his brain into his brother B4, who's sort of like an inferior version of Data. But the hope is that maybe B4 will someday sort of learn to be like Data, because Data uploaded his shit before he died. But the scientist tells Picard that didn't work. B4 was too primitive. His fucking positronic brain was not up to snuff, and it didn't work. He did not become the new Data, which is what everyone was sort of hoping was going to happen. And Picard's like, well, that's a real bummer. She says, and this is a deep cut, she starts talking about Dr. Bruce Maddox.
Well, I was wondering if that was a new character or if that's somebody who's...
Dr. Bruce Maddox is the doctor from Measure of a Man who comes to the ship and wants to take Data away
to study him.
Disassemble him.
Gotcha. Okay, well, that makes more sense now where his name keeps popping up in this show.
So
I wasn't sure, because obviously there's new characters, and I didn't recognize the name, but I knew you would, so I figured... Eventually,
so there's a famous episode of Star Trek The Next Generation Men called Measure for a Man, which is all about whether Data is a life form or a thing.
Or property, yeah.
Because this scientist from Starfleet, Dr. Bruce Maddox, comes onto the Enterprise and wants to take Data away and basically disassemble him and figure out how he works to try and make more. He's like, imagine having a Data on every ship and how wonderful that would be. And because Data can do all of these things and nobody else can do.
It's like an amazing
so they have a
washing
trial.
machine.
It's a classic Star Trek episode because it has a trial scene in it.
Picard versus Riker.
Picard has to defend, and Riker gets assigned the job of prosecuting.
Oh my God.
So anyway, at the end, Data is judged to be a living creature that has his own rights. But that doctor, Dr. Bruce Maddox, he leaves. It's a guest appearance. He's only in this one episode. But Data says, I'll still communicate back and forth with you and tell you about what's going on with me so you can continue your research. So you get the idea that they continued. And in fact, there's a later episode where Data actually, you see Data sort of like composing a letter to this guy.
To Dr. Maddox. Okay.
So you get the idea that they continued their relationship off screen, even though we never see that character again.
Sure.
But now here he is being referenced again in the new show. Dr. Girardi says to him, Dr. Bruce Maddox was the most brilliant android researcher because he was friends with Data and understood how it worked better than anybody. And his dream was to create flesh and blood androids. But after they banned androids, after the Mars thing, he left, and I've never seen him since then. So I don't know where he is or what happened to him.
Wouldn't that sort of be like a superhuman, basically?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
like she can murder a
That's
bunch
what
of people.
she was. You saw this girl. She was a.
She, like,
knew
jumps, like,
all sorts
30
of
feet in
kung
the
fu.
air.
She could jump high in the air. She
It's
can
Bionic Man.
hack a
man.
computer. I mean, she's super person.
It's classic Bionic Woman. So there's a bunch of classic Trek space gobbledygook, techno babble, where they talk about how androids work,
Well,
as
and
if
there's
that's a
the
real
girl,
thing.
The girl. One
She's
of the
like
things,
explaining to
Yeah,
him, like,
yeah.
well, here's how androids are created. And it's like, somebody just made that up.
Yeah.
Some office in Burbank.
And the last thing they talk about,
Oh, yeah. So
She's
she
got
has
a
a
necklace, and
The
it's
girl
got
has a necklace.
2 rings in it.
Before she dies, she takes the necklace off, gives it to Picard. So Picard's got it with him, and he shows it to the
She's
scientist.
not dead.
That shows it to the scientist lady. The scientist lady says, "Oh shit, that's the symbol for flesh and blood androids or whatever."
So they talk about they call it fractal neurotic cloning.
Oh yeah, you actually took notes.
Wow.
That was good of you. So, long story short, what she says to him is, if this is possible, there would be 2 of them because they're created as twins.
Like
There's
quantum
some
pairs.
scientific gobbledygook
As
reason
to why, but
as
they're
to
always
why.
done as
But the point
twins.
is that there's 2. So Picard's like, oh fuck, if
There's
there's
another.
2, that means there's another one
Where's
of
the
these
other
girls out there, and she's in danger from these Romulan assholes. And that was the end of the first episode.
No. Then it cuts
Oh,
to...
then you see her. Oh,
so
right,
then
okay.
it cuts to her,
The second one.
the second one,
You meet the second girl.
who is on some... It's
She's
you
on
can't
a
really
ship.
tell what it is, a ship, and
She's
she's
talking to a
working with a bunch of
Romulan dude.
Romulans. They're all Romulans. And then they bring in Dr. Narek. Is that his name? The guy, the Romulan doctor.
Yeah,
with
I don't
the-
even know what his deal is, but
They haven't really said... I mean, he... In the second episode, he bangs the chick, but
yeah, he does.
bangs the robot chick.
You don't even really know quite what's going on, but they're on.
Anyways.
They're on some ship. They're doing some kind of scientific research type bullshit.
Pull back.
And then the camera pulls back and back and back and back and back and back until you're out in space,
Borg cube.
and it's a Borg
Dude,
cube,
there's preferred nomenclature nowadays.
They made love.
as opposed to what?
Bang
Bang.
the chick.
I'm just glad he didn't say. I don't know. I've heard him say worse things than that.
Went down
Anyways, the Borg cube did not have the impact I was hoping.
It didn't have that means nothing to me.
Well, that's the
What's
Borg up
interesting
there.
is that there are
they're existing,
Romulans.
coexisting.
No, the Borg are dead.
Oh, okay.
The Borg were all killed by Picard,
Okay.
right? I mean,
So-
when he just didn't
No.
that. Well, what happened to the ones that?
Okay, well now we're gonna get into some deep lore.
Deep Borg. Deep Borg.
So you're talking about
First contact, sure.
So in the movie Star Trek First Contact, man,
Yeah.
is all about the Borgs. And at the end of it, Picard kills the Borg queen, right? And you think, oh, that's the end of the Borgs. But then in Voyager, you see that the Borg queen can just like download her fucking
Oh, so
consciousness
she downloaded
wherever.
somewhere else.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's still a thing.
Because the Borg were a huge part of Voyager. Like they
In-
encountered the Borg all
Well, I
the
know
fucking
they
time.
7 and 9, but and the
No, but they're like the Borg were like
they're bad
the
guy,
main
bad
villains
guy. Oh, they
on
were, okay.
Star.
That's
on
my
Voyager.
lack of watching Voyager,
They were on
showing it,
Voyager
rearing
a lot.
its ugly head. But anyways, it's still interesting that why are there Romulans on the
Right.
Borg cube?
It seems as though it's an abandoned or deserted Borg cube,
And they're
that the
salvaging it?
Romulans have kind of moved in on and are salvaging.
And for some reason, this
We don't know why the girl is there
android
yet.
girl
She works there.
is a doctor.
She's a doctor.
She's working, and we don't know what they're doing. End of episode 1.
So I know that did not have resonance for you, but as a fan of Star Trek,
That's a lot of great lore that's coming together.
as a fan of Star Trek, to see that fucking pullback and realize, oh shit, they're on the Borg ship.
Yeah.
That was like the big reveal of the episode, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I don't follow Star Trek closely enough for that to be deeply meaningful.
Right. So that was the end of the first episode.
Yeah.
I really liked it.
It was great. I mean,
great to see. It was just great to see him playing that character.
Tons of nostalgia surrounded about it.
A lot of fan service.
But it's also
a lot of fan
but it's
service.
also
I mean, just its
modern
archives.
TV as well, right? It's
Right.
not.
It's not.
It's not really
It's a serialized television show.
It's serialized Star Trek.
It's telling a long form story.
Yeah, it's not
in sort of modern day TV style.
It's as far
It's not
away from
self-contained
classic
stories.
Star Trek
Right.
as you could possibly be, because. And I'm good with. I love and
there is a part of me. I understand why they're doing it this way, because that is how you tell stories on television these days. But I kind of miss classic episodic television.
Everything's
where
contained.
you watch one episode, it's self-contained. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Right.
Like there's something very comforting about and satisfying about that model, and nobody really does that anymore. Law and Order and cop shows and
Sitcoms?
those kind of shows do. Well, I'm talking about.
Oh, sure.
I mean, yes,
sitcoms still
for sure.
Very classic sitcoms.
I was talking about sort
good.
of like classic hour-long dramas. So that's just out of style now.
Sure,
like,
you don't see it very often.
It's not fashionable.
Other
to make
than
TV
like you
that.
said, the like Blue
there
Bloods.
are still procedurals and things like that.
And even those nowadays have a lot more extended storylines within the episode.
But I did and I knew it was going to be like this, so it's not like I was surprised. But at the end of that first episode, I was like, this is going to be one of those fucking 10-hour-long stories. Like,
it's just a long 10-hour movie is what they do in this.
But that's a little bit of what you want.
I mean,
with something that you love.
I would be happy to see, because even Discovery is
long form,
serialized.
sure.
Yes.
I would like to see a classic Star Trek show where it's just a ship flying around, and every week they have an adventure.
You know what that show is called right now?
You're going to say the Orville.
It's called the Orville.
Yeah, but I can't stand his
And
face.
that's fine. I'm just telling you.
I've told you this so many times.
And I'm telling
The
you.
actor, the writer.
I don't like Seth MacFarlane's
As of
face.
right now,
He has a very punchable
if you
face.
want to watch a classic Star Wars show, Star Trek show, it's the Orville. Like every show is,
It's just not
it's
gonna
an
happen.
episodic thing. I mean, they always encounter some planet, and everything is status quo at the end. Like,
But it's beautifully made. To get back to the show, it looks amazing.
Yeah.
The acting is all top-notch television acting.
Sure.
Like they certainly spared no expense in making.
no,
the thing.
it looks beautiful.
It looks
Production-wise,
great.
it's on par with Discovery.
Yeah,
The production value is amazing.
It
I
looks
mean,
great.
the vineyard is beautiful.
Yeah.
And he's terrific in it. It's so. There was something very satisfying about watching him play that character again.
Sure. Well, and it's interesting too.
Go ahead.
Because he's way more sort of relaxed Picard than he ever was on Next Generation, which is also kind of cool to see. Because he's like in that scene where he's talking to her about her being a robot.
Right.
He's so gleeful about it.
Yeah.
And it's just so cool to see Picard being like smiling and like really, it's really cool. I thought it was cool.
I liked how he became more Picardy over the course of that first episode. Because when you see him in the beginning and he's just sort of, I'm just bumping around the vineyard Picard, you're kind of like, where's my old, where's my guy? Like, where's the classic Picard we know and love? But once he gets sort of involved in the adventure, you start to see the old, like, I'm a leader of men. Picard starts to come back out, because there's a scene where he's talking to the two Romulans, his friends, after he gets blown up, and he wakes up on the couch and he says to them, I haven't been living the last 14 years. I've just been hanging around here waiting to die, because he's like, I have to get to the bottom of this, and you start to see the old Captain Picard come out.
Well, is it in the second episode when he puts the?
Yes.
Okay.
What about those action moments? You had said that that was when he felt oldest. Do you wish that they had used some sort of CGI or a stunt
There
double?
is clearly a whole cast of young people who are going to be on this show who are going to be handling the action moments.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah,
that's just not in John Luke's wheelhouse anymore.
I think he's supposed to be, the character's supposed to be old.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's
They
okay
talk constantly about how old
if
he is.
the physical stuff.
He shouldn't be expected to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
It would look
that
ridiculous.
if he did do it. Yeah,
You want to watch 79-year-old Patrick Stewart pretend to fist fight a 25-year-old
it's
stunt
like
guy?
It's like watching 80-year-old Christopher Lee fight in a lightsaber battle.
Right.
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 You know,
It just makes you worried
they're
more than anything
Lord
else.
of the Rings when the wizards have their fight together.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think they'll let
perfect.
the young gang.
Yeah.
yeah. They had. I mean, it was great.
It was great.
You know, you got the little bit of.
It was very, very satisfying.
tons of
Callbacks,
stuff
tons
for
of,
fans, but it also is like an interesting story in and of itself.
It's interesting to see how the Federation has changed.
Evolved.
And
Well,
like,
I was thinking about it because, like, you would, when we talked about Discovery at one point in time on the show, and you were like, what you would have done is shot it instead of doing a.
they should have put it in the future.
That's what this show is.
yeah.
Like,
It is.
It's because now it's like the Romulans are sort of part of Federation now, which that was never really a thing on the show, and
clearly the thematic through line of the whole thing is going to be Picard sort of reminding the Federation and Starfleet of like
what
their values are.
should be,
right.
yeah.
Like that's going to be the ultimate payoff.
Yeah.
Is that he's going to remind everybody, hey, we're being xenophobic and anti-android and is not
Close-minded.
is not a good way for people to be. It's all a metaphor for Trump.
Yeah,
the whole
sure.
thing is
There are parallels.
like
Yeah.
the way the Federation is now is clearly inspired by like
fucking
our current government.
Patrick Stewart said it.
Yeah, Patrick Stewart's
He
like,
said it,
fuck
yeah.
this.
This is all about the fucking Brexit and
Yeah.
and our
The perils
xenophobic.
of fascism and xenophobia are going to be a big part of the show, clearly.
Two
Well,
thumbs
that's-
up.
Yeah, so I just found a little review that had like some of the Easter eggs in the episode. We mostly talked about them: Blue Skies, the poker game, the Daystrom Institute. Oh, the flute in the opening theme song is supposed to be the flute from when Inner Light that he learns to play when he's
Oh,
in the,
yeah.
That's why there's a flute. He drinks Earl Grey decaf
Yes,
now because he's an old man.
Yes, he's an old man. I like
So
that.
when he orders his fucking tea from the replicator, remember how on the old show,
It was
man,
Earl Grey hot.
he always said tea Earl Grey hot.
Yes.
He says tea Earl Grey decaf.
and he
'Cause
serves
old people can't drink caffeine; it makes them all cranky.
he serves the robot Earl Grey tea and tells her it's always perfect or something like that.
Picard says to Daj, Data always wanted a daughter. Like
Right,
in that little
sure.
scene where they're
And he had
talking.
it.
And there's an episode of
Where
The
he
Next
has a
Generation
daughter.
called The Offspring, where Data creates a female daughter android. It's a great episode. I actually rewatched it just the other day because it was obviously meant to be a thematic tie-in. It's a terrific episode. It's very sad.
Yep.
At the end of the episode, she dies. Her brain can't. The whole thing about Data is that Data's the only one that Dr. Soong got right. Right. All of his other times, they couldn't figure it out. So that's why every attempt to recreate Data ends in failure because they can't figure out how his fucking positronic net works. And so in this episode, The Offspring, his daughter eventually starts malfunctioning because Data couldn't figure out how to do it, and she dies at the end. He deactivates her. It's very sad. That's it. That's all I got.
Where do you think they drew the line at? Like, no more Easter eggs. This is as deep as we need to go.
I don't think there is a line. I mean, I think they're just going to.
You got to
continue
realize, like,
discovering
all
things.
of this, the show is being written by Star Trek fans,
Sure.
you know,
Trekkies.
so they want to put that shit in
wanna see all
too.
that
They want to
shit
see it too.
Checkers. Well, you said you wanted it to be about a 20, 25-minute episode.
How long have we been talking?
An hour.
Okay.
Wow.
We should stop.
All right. Well, unless anyone has anything else they'd like to add. Okay.
No, I'm kidding. Get
Next
us outta
next
here.
week's will be shorter.
Yeah.
So we're going to be doing this for the whole run of Picard, these little bonus episodes. Don't worry, we'll still be doing our fun trek through the Corey or whatever.
The movies.
Through the movies. We'll be doing
Next weekend we're doing Star
Search
Trek
for
3.
Spock. Yeah. So those episodes will still be coming out. And we're going to do this, I don't know, what is there, 10 episodes?
Yeah, something
like that. So the next 8-10 weeks we'll be doing this as
It'll
much
be
as we
easy
can.
enough to do.
Oh, these Picard things?
Yeah. We don't think they'll all be an hour long. We'll get better with our recaps, I think. And but anyways, my name is Shawn.
My name is Matt.
I'm